Good morning, wherever you are in the world. I know it's hot. It is so hot that we must channel our inner Eskimo, right? So I've been learning a little bit about Eskimos. And so, Kathryn, do you know how an Eskimo builds his house?
No, Tara, I don't.
He glues it together.
Okay, that was a good one.
I'm the worst comedian ever. I laugh at my own.
As long as you're having fun, that's great. That's all it takes.
Oh, you got it. You got it. Here we are. Good morning. Welcome to Wednesdays on the Daily Huddle, my favorite place to be. But it is not about me. Let me ask you, Sorrel, tell us this morning, where are you?
Tara, let me check. I'm here, right where I am.
Absolutely. The very best place to be to kick off your day with some inspiration and some energy. We're so grateful that all of you are here with us this morning. Let me welcome our buddy, Ron. He just hopped on. So I must ask you, Ron, tell me, how are you today and what are you grateful for?
Today, I feel fantastic and I'm grateful for having a lot of work.
Oh, I love it.
A lot of work.
I love that. We need to get together. I need to learn more about your work. And I love that smile. Thank you for sharing. Hey, Stan, good morning. Good morning. You got to tell us what time it is and who you're going to hug today.
Wow, the time is now. The only time that there is. And I think I'm gonna hug some of my plants in my new garden I have. I got a community garden. And I think
Ooh,
I'm gonna plant some potatoes. I'm gonna hug my potato plants before I plant them.
love it. Awesome. That is fantastic. That was the most beautiful answer. So thank you so much. Welcome all of you this morning. I am so honored to be here with my wonderful co-host and dear friend, Kathryn Sable. And we have an exciting conversation today with our guest around intellectual property. So I'm going to turn this morning over to Kathryn to tell us more.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation today with Ashley. Ashley is an intellectual property attorney. She works at Morris, Manning & Martin in Atlanta. And she focuses on building and managing trademark portfolios, handling intellectual property disputes. Her clients include startups, mid-sized companies across a variety of industries: technology, e-commerce, fashion, finance, food and beverage, agricultural, real estate. She's really well versed in all of it. And when she's not working, Ashley enjoys assembling charcuterie boards. I didn't know that. And long walks with her black lab, Bella. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, good morning.
So glad that you are going to join us today. And today we're going to talk about how to build trust early. So before we dive into that question and your answer to it, tell us a little bit about what you do as an attorney.
Sure. So I am a senior associate at Morris, Manning & Martin, where I practice intellectual property law. And my day-to-day, honestly, it varies a lot, and I wear a lot of different hats. But at the core, I advise startups and mid-sized companies on identifying their intellectual property rights, protecting them, and then enforcing them. So day to day, it varies so much. Sometimes I'm drafting briefs, sometimes I'm putting together trademark applications, sometimes I'm just providing more of that like business counsel type advice. And when you work in the startup realm, you can imagine that the issues that come up are all over the board.
Yeah. What do you love about it?
I think what I love the most about what I do is the opportunity to build relationships with people and the opportunity to really get to know their business. It's amazing in the kind of area of law that I practice, which I do advise on a lot of different issues relating to IP, patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. But the bulk of my practice is really focusing on branding and trademark protection. And that area of law really spans across different industries. So I've learned about the real estate industry. I've learned about e-commerce. I've learned about, recently became the expert in like hemp and CBD trademark applications, which is
Oh my
something I
gosh,
never saw
fascinating.
coming.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting.
So yeah, I love that, because that's what you said when we first started talking about this, is you love the relationship side. And there's something about you. I haven't known you that long, but from the moment I met you, I felt like an instant connection to you. Just this warm, like I felt like I could tell you anything. And we connected over an event that, I was doing at Morris, Manning and Martin. And so we got in the conversation about how do you build trust early, because you said that's what you have to do to get these relationships, to get people to trust you so that you can, well, one, they'll come in as a client, but, tell us more about how you do that. How do you build trust early? Because I feel it.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad that you feel that way, and I hope other people feel the same. So I think that trust is really critical in our lives, in all of our relationships. I think it's critical in our personal relationships, our work relationships, and the relationship we have with ourselves. And as an attorney, I do feel like sort of the first step I do in building an attorney-client relationship is really establishing trust and what that looks like, because clients need to trust me with their confidential information, and they also need to trust that the advice that I'm providing them is it has their best interest in mind and is not self-serving. And I think at its core, I think the first step to building trust is really recognizing that every opportunity and every interaction we have with somebody is an opportunity to build trust, and it's also an opportunity to build distrust too. So, and I'm guilty of this oftentimes, like where we go on autopilot and we're not really conscious of the words that we're using or our interactions, or maybe the message that our body language is sending. And trust starts with like really being present with somebody and really listening, and just acknowledging that this is your opportunity to really get to know somebody else.
I love that you said body language, because I think we didn't talk about this, but you're talking about all the subtle messages, all of the nonverbal cues that we're giving.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like you start before you even get into that interaction with someone.
Absolutely. I think it starts with, when you look at somebody and you just like, you make eye contact and you maintain eye contact, and your voice is kind of low, and you ask open-ended questions, not yes/no questions. All of those things like subtly, I think, make someone feel comfortable, which is what you're trying to do when you're trying to build trust with someone.
So you're talking about being present, eye contact, being curious about the other person, the open-ended question, genuinely wanting to know something. Because I think we've talked about this a lot, but I think people know when you have an agenda.
Oh yeah. People see through lip service for sure.
Yeah. So you're really practiced at this, because again, like I can feel it with you. And even as you're talking now, like there's just this warmth about you. So you're really well versed at this. It's probably just part of who you are. How do you learn to do this if it's not part of who you are and you want to be more, I guess, trustworthy?
Yeah. So it's funny, like reflecting on this, because I've been practicing law for 5 years now. And I remember when I first started practicing, which I don't like come from a family of attorneys. My route to law school like looked very different, and I didn't know I was going to end up in law school till like I was out of college. And I remember showing up as like a junior associate and thinking that I really needed to like be very buttoned up and very polished and very, very, very together, and always have the answer and kind of like wear all of the armor. And that's exhausting when you feel like you have to show up that way, and it's just not authentic. And I think over time, kind of playing with like dropping some of the armor taking an interest in the people around me and getting to know them and feeling comfortable enough to like lean into who I really am, that has helped tremendously in really showing up authentically, which is it's a hard skill. I mean, it's definitely something that I'm continue to grow into.
And you said something about this, about being authentic, that when you said buttoned up, you would show up in, black and navy,
Oh, yeah.
the traditional attorney garb.
I think one day I remember looking in my closet and being like, gosh, that's a lot of black. How did this happen?
But you love color.
I do love color. Yeah. And I think that that's certainly like an expression of myself, and I'm going to wear it.
Yeah. So I guess that's a way that we mute ourselves when you're talking about showing up authentically, because I think I'm pointing to where are the places that I would look if I don't feel authentic, I'm not feeling myself. And these are all the places that we devalue ourselves, our true authentic expression of ourselves, because of what society thinks we should do or what we think society wants from us. So I imagine it's easier when you're fully yourself, you're transparent, it's much easier to show up and be in that space of presence and open curiosity, because there's nothing you're guarding. There's nothing you're trying to kind of.
Yeah. And I think that the clients that I've worked with, and even just in friendships and in my working relationships with people that I work with, my colleagues, they appreciate that so much. And I think another element of like authenticity and honesty are super intertwined. And especially I think of honesty when building the attorney-client relationship. I think this is where like a lot of lawyers kind of diverge. I think the business of practicing law and the billable hour can kind of incentivize not being honest. And I don't think that's right. And I think that a lot of clients, given the opportunity, do see through that. And I know that I've been in situations where providing very candid and very honest advice that was hard to deliver has been very appreciated by clients. And I think that that's just critical. And even though in the moment it might not feel good, in the long run, it's a good thing and it matters.
Well, let's go back to the body language and then the nonverbal cues, because this is Tara's land too, where she really understands what it does for the brain when you show up that way. So talk to us a little bit more about how you do that and how you show up in a way that builds that genuine connection.
Yeah. So, gosh, I think authenticity and being vulnerable also go hand in hand. And when you are opening a conversation and you're trying to establish rapport with somebody, I think just asking general questions about their life, like finding some sort of common ground, really helps like extend an invitation for someone to come and meet you there. So I kind of have like, I hate to say like my Rolodex of things, but talking about like family, vacations, what'd you do this weekend? Have you cooked anything cool lately during I'm a big football fan, so during football season, like I have a lot of male clients, and I feel like sports are a really great area to build common ground. But just like those little things of getting to know someone, and then you can kind of file that away. And then the next time you talk with them, you can ask about like, hey, how is your son doing? Last time we talked, he was getting ready to have a piano recital. How'd that go? And I think people really appreciate that you've taken an interest in their life, and helps give you a little credibility.
Yeah, and I would build on that because my memory isn't as good as it used to be. So I used to be able to like remember those things and go back and ask, but I find myself now at a soccer game, I can't remember the parents' names, and I know I've met them like 5 times. So I literally have notes in my phone where I write people's names and I can go back, and because like you want to, I mean, I obviously want to be able to call them by their name. So I also think it's building the structures that that can help support that, when you can't just recall it because of whatever reason.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And Tara, I'd love for you to come on too, because there's just, I don't know, for me, there's something here about, what happens for us when somebody shows up like this, like, what's happening in the brain, because Tara's all about the neuroscience. And I just think it's really important in the conversation of how to build trust.
Uh, I was thinking about my studies and how I've experienced similar conversations to what you're talking about. And I'd love to share just a little bit and get your feedback on this. So interestingly, and I think I mentioned this before we got started, I've talked to several intellectual property attorneys. And I'll tell you how the conversation went and what happened to my brain, because I know they did what you said at first. They asked these questions, want to learn about what I've built. And so the hope is that at that point, the quote, the famous Theodore Roosevelt quote comes to mind. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So they're seeking to care. But when I knew it was artificial, it was just they were going through the motions. They never came back and said anything positive about what I built. They just started firing all the holes in why I wasn't ready to brand talk to the brain. Nothing positive. So where I was hoping for some serotonin and some, encouragement to move the needle forward, I got all this negativity. And I think the mindset is, we think we're going to close a sale or get the business based on fear. And that's cortisol that makes us feel uncomfortable. And it's a strategy, but not when it's a relationship.
No.
So my question to you is, and I can already feel that you are set apart from these folks. Do you have a moment in that conversation, like that gestalt moment when okay, now it's time for me to kind of move in and share what I know and close this deal, so to speak? Like, how do you move into that and stay authentic and caring about the person?
Gosh, that is such a good question. And I think and I have to give all the credit in the world to the two partners that I work for who have just shown me the ropes, and they're excellent attorneys and they're excellent people persons too. I didn't say that quite right. When working with especially working with like individuals or startups, that's such a spectrum, and your goals differ, your technology and what you're working on really differs. And I think what helps set us apart in our practice, and what I hope does set us apart, is that I could make a recommendation and scare you and say you need to do X, Y, Z, these 10 things. This is going to be critical for you to raise money, get acquired, scale a business, all of these goals and directions that you're going into. And you might not be ready for that. And also that might not fit with your finances and where you are. And I think where we can be very encouraging and meet you where you are at is by saying, yeah, this is one option. We could file for everything. But also, here, based on my experience with similarly situated companies, these are things that they found helpful, just X and Y for these reasons. And you may be foregoing this area for a little bit, but let's start here. Let's see how this feels. Let's feel this out. And then let's check in 6 months and see how it's going. And if the business has changed, if your temperature has changed, then let's reassess and see if it makes sense to push the needle in a different direction or forward more.
That's helpful to our minds, because the last thing somebody wants to do is feel so overwhelmed that they're helpless and they need you because they're helpless. But just to kind of condense and say, here's 2 suggestions. Why don't we tackle these 2 first and meet up again? That really does show that you're
I think I've read that our brains can't handle more than 3 things at once, really. When you start getting into like 5, 6, and 7 action items, it just feels super overwhelming. And that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to help simplify things, take complex legal matters. Intellectual property can be some complex stuff, and simplify it in a way that is digestible and in a way that brings value to your business. And I know that the clients that I've worked with really value that, because they've referred work or made introductions. And that's the biggest compliment that you can ever get when you're working in a service world or running a business.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think also that what you're saying about, because again, even as you're describing it now, you really do care. And that's what people can see through. Of course, you care to build your business, but you care about the people behind it. And I think that's so important to, and if you don't care, like if you really are just driven toward the business, like it's time to stop and slow down and think, okay, who's the person on the other side of the table?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And don't lose focus of that. And I, not to be like really critical of my kind, because I do think that there's excellent attorneys out there. I've worked with them. Keeping in mind that you have to serve others, like having a servant's heart, which is like, it's a buzzword, but I do think that going into a situation where you give before you expect to receive, people see that. And I think that they like that and acknowledge that and find you more trustworthy because of that.
I love that. Ashley, thank you so much. This has been such a good conversation, and I want to open it up for questions. I see Sorrel has his hand up.
Good morning, Ashley. Thank you.
Good morning.
Tara and Kathryn, thank you for, moving the conversation in this direction. I just want to share what I'm getting out of the conversation. What I'm hearing loud and clear from you, Ashley, is that often there's the opportunity to use things like what you're saying, figure out what the name of your son is, whether or not they went to a baseball game, and then later on ask about it as a way to build credibility. And then it's seeking to build that credibility in a way that's separate, meaning like I could be in business seeing the person separate from the business.
Yeah.
And the opportunity I hear you offering is the opportunity for there to just be that human being there.
Yes, that is
Another
so
human being, and we're building a relationship. And that relationship has multiple facets. One facet ends up being your significant other, your dog, your son, the baseball game. And another aspect, which is equally important, is your business, its health, its profitability and stuff. And you're there just to serve all of it. That's the opportunity I'm hearing, and it's just really refreshing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was so well said. I feel like you need to be on the hot seat.
Yeah, it's great. And I agree. That's exactly what I hear, that it's the whole thing. And it's what Tara said. She did not hear from the other attorneys about the health of her business. It was, so that's great. Parachute Pete.
Good morning again, all. Hey, what are you guys
Hey,
doing? Great
good.
presentation, Ashley. I was taking notes, even though I was kind of being present, asking open-ended questions curiously, be transparent, authentic, vulnerable. I added use their names often and finding common ground, because that's very foundational. But I'm on the phone, I don't see my clients, and I'm being selfish. I'm asking a question. If you don't actually have that exercise to do body language where you actually are among them, what are some of the tips that you utilize for somebody who never sees the client on the other side of the phone?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I think balancing first, I think talking slowly and communicating clearly is really key. I also think that when you're asking questions, give the other person the opportunity to talk. I know sometimes we kind of skip so far ahead, or we're so focused on what we're going to say next that we're not really listening, being present, and being there with the person that's sharing. And you have to balance that with also, because they can't see your body language, they can't see your eye contact, acknowledging to them that you're there by maybe saying like, okay, yes, and just communicating that this is a two-way conversation, and even though I don't see you, I'm here with you, I'm listening. And I also really appreciate when you're asked a question or you're considering something and you take a pause and collect your thoughts and then communicate. I think that people appreciate that you're taking the time to really think through something and delivering a thoughtful message. And that helps build credibility, show that you're caring, and trustworthiness.
That's great. I love the space. I love the silence and the space and the slowing down. I think all of that's great. Tara.
Yeah, this is kind of a fun question. I'm sure you've experienced this before. Like you ask somebody maybe about like sports or their kids or something, and you get the sense that they just want to get down to business. So are you sensitive to that? Like I have some sales folks that I work with and they're like, nope, I just keep doing what I do. I mean, some people are like, no, here's what I want to talk about. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Do you pick up on those cues?
I do. And I have to say, like, I of course will like go in with my grand plan of just trying to get to know somebody, get to know their business, get to know their personality. And that's one of the things that you're kind of listening for is, okay, what's their tone? Are they just all business, want to get straight to work, don't want to do the small talk chit chat? And if that's the case, I think it's important to respect that and just say, okay, well, thank you so much for your time. I'm really glad that we've had the opportunity to connect on this. I've had an opportunity to give this some thought, and here's what I'm thinking about this issue that you're experiencing, and just go ahead and dive right in. And you have to meet people where they're at, and people are at different places.
I love that. It makes me think back. And so thank you for that sensitivity to folks. Nobody loves their children as much as I do, or Kathryn does, or every parent. But I had a time in my life where when I got up and went to work, I needed a break from the traumatic things we were facing in my home. I didn't want to talk about my kids. I truly needed to be in that work mode just to take a break from that. So I think it's easy to judge someone a little bit and say, oh, they don't even want to talk about their kids. Maybe they need for you to fill them up in that business sense. So I really appreciate your sensitivity to that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think what you're saying too, it's being emotionally intelligent, but also being present, because when it's not having an agenda, because when you're present, you're listening to the cues, you're hearing what they're saying. So this has been so great, Ashley. Thank you so much. We're going to close here in just a minute. I'm going to put some contact information for Ashley in the chat. So feel free to reach out to her with any of your IP needs. Ashley, leave us with one comment that what's a one takeaway that we can leave here today from you in this conversation?
Oh gosh. So we've talked a lot today about, I think, building trust with another person, but I think trust is really multidimensional. I think that there's trust that we build with other people. There's trust that we build with ourselves and the relationship we have with ourselves. And I think there's also like trusting in something bigger than yourself, or trusting in God's plan for your life. And I do think that for me, it's God has given us all really interesting and unique gifts. And there's no challenge that he brings us to that he hasn't given you the gifts to meet. And I think today, if like you're needing a little bit of encouragement, just lean into that trust that that you've got everything that you need in order to have just a beautiful and successful life.
Oh my gosh, I love that you brought that. I love that. I'm going to take that away with me today. Trust in life, not just in building trust with other people. Ashley, thank you so much. Thanks for being with us today. And I'm going to close out. I'm kind of feeling the love now after that last statement. So I'm going to close out with the 7 tenets from Patty Dabrowski, how we normally close. And I'm going to start with love. Love other people. Love your plants. Eat more plants. It will make your body feel good. If you hug your potato plant and then eat your potato plant, I feel like it's going to fill you up with love. It just has to, right? So laugh out loud, find a kid, listen to Tara's joke again, do whatever you got to do. See, Tara, I love it because you create your own laughter. You tell yourself a joke and then you get to laugh about it. Laugh. It gives you all the good stuff you need. Stress less, sleep, get your 7 hours, honor yourself, create your routine to get in the bed early, turn those devices off, go to sleep, feel rejuvenated, restored, and give. And y'all, I always do only 6 of these. I don't know how I always skip one. So I'm going to be sure to get 7 today. Okay. So give of your love, give of your time, have a servant's heart. And the last one's my favorite. Okay. Y'all move that body, move what your mama gave you. We will see you tomorrow on Thursday. Thanks everybody for coming. Thank you,
Thank you,
Ashley.
thank you, thank
Love
you.
it. Thank
Thank
you,
you so much,
guys.
Ashley.
Thank
you,
you so
Ashley.
much, everyone.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Perspective.
Bye.
Hello,
much.
Kate. Bye-bye.
Did she get on?
Yeah, Kate's been on the whole time.
Oh, how's she? I couldn't see her.